Today I'm going to show you how to sew a super quick and easy surgical seatbelt cushion. I am actually a nurse and make these for cancer patients to cover their chemo ports in the car so that the seatbelts don't dig into them. People who have shoulder surgery, abdominal surgery, C-sections, any kind of patient who the seatbelt causes discomfort on their incision sites, or to cover up their ports if they're getting chemotherapy, or their abdomen like you see here, so that if you had a C-section or some kind of abdominal surgery, it will cover that area and make it much more bearable to ride in the vehicle after surgeries. The pattern pieces for this project are below in the description box, or if you're watching from my website, alohasewingcompany.com, welcome and sew along. These are the 4 printable pages of the pattern pieces. I'm going to show you real briefly how to put those together for some of our beginner-friendly sewers who are watching. You're going to get all 4 pieces and you're going to cut straight across the bottom following that dashed line. Cut it all at one time. Once you've done that, let's get A1 and A2. You're going to overlap the pages just a little bit so that those 2 stars match up as best as you can. Then you're going to get a piece of tape and tape those together. You can also use a glue stick or glue, whatever you have on hand. And then just go ahead and cut that pattern piece out right along the dashed outer edges. I include 2 different pattern pieces for the actual seatbelt strap. So let's go ahead and put B1 and B2 together and tape or paste that in place if you are going to make one long seatbelt strap. If you just want to make 2 smaller seatbelt straps like I've done here in this tutorial for you today, you're just going to cut out that bottom small box. Don't worry about taping it together. So again, this is our main pillow cushion pattern piece. We are going to trace that onto fabric and cut 2 out. And if you're going to make one longer seatbelt strap, it will probably be quicker if you do it this way, and works just the same as making 2. You're going to cut 2 on fabric. If you are making the 2 smaller seatbelt straps, you're going to use this one and cut 4 onto fabric. So you're going to need your cushion fabric, a piece of hook and loop, and a little bit of polyfill stuffing or any kind of stuffing you have on hand. The first thing we're going to do is get our pillow cushion pattern piece, place it on top of the fabric and trace all the way around it, and you're going to cut 2. I don't trace 2 out, I trace it on 1 piece of fabric, and then I lay my other fabric right below it and I cut them both out at the same time. I do the same thing for the straps. It just helps you cut down on your cutting time doing it this way. Here is both of my cushion fabrics. This is going to be the front of my pillow cushion and this is going to be the back. Now let's go ahead and cut out our seatbelt strap flaps. I am going to make 2 smaller flaps, so I'm going to cut 4 on fabric. If you're only making the one longer one, you only need to cut 2. So how I do this quickly is I get my fabric that's already cut and folded together. It doesn't matter if the right or the wrong sides are together, just 2 stacked on top of each other, and then I fold it one more time. Doing this gives me 4 pieces of fabric layered and sandwiched together, and then all I do is put my pattern piece right on top of that, trace it out, and I cut all 4 layers of fabric out at one time to get my 4 pieces of fabric for the 2 flaps that we're making for the seat belts. We're going to start out by making the seatbelt flaps. So we're going to get our 2 pieces of fabric, regardless of which one you're making, the 2 flaps or the 1 flap, and place them with the right sides of the fabric together. The pretty sides should be kissing. Now we're going to sew starting at the bottom and going all the way around and leaving about a 1.5 to 2 inch opening right there at the bottom that you are not going to sew closed. Here's what mine looks like. I used a 1/4 inch seam allowance and I have this opening here at the bottom. Now I'm going to cut small diagonal slits right at each of these corners just to reduce that bulk when we flip it right side out right there at the corners. Make sure you don't cut through your stitches, just right up to that stitch. And after we do that, we're gonna go ahead and turn this right side out through that whole opening we left at the bottom. You can use your fingers once you have it flipped right side out and smoothen out all the seams. I also like to use a chopstick to go in and poke out all of my corners so that everything lays nice and flat and all my seams are nice and flat as well. Now we want to close that opening at the bottom. We're going to do this by putting our pointer fingers right onto the side seams of this, pulling it, and then it should flip your fabric in so that it's flush with the rest of the fabric. And you're going to push that in about 1/4 of an inch, and then I just like to give it a nice press with my iron so that I don't have to pin or clip. Now we're going to top stitch all the way around this using about a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that I have my top stitch done, I want to go ahead and place it right on top of my pattern piece. I'm doing this because we're going to fold these and we want to match it up with the 2 fold lines on that pattern piece. So here's my first fold line here. I'm going to match that up and fold it on my fabric right where that fold line is and press it with your finger so it makes a nice crease. Now we're going to go to the other side where the other fold line is and you're going to fold it right there as well. Press it again with your finger to make a crease, and then you can press it one more time with your iron so that it stays nice and in place. And we're going to use those as our sewing guides in just a little bit when we attach this to the cushion. So you want to make sure that you press it nice so you can see that crease really well. Now we are ready to go ahead and place our hook and loop. You can use the box on your pattern piece to measure the size that you need. You're going to cut 2 of them for the 2 flaps and just 1 of them for your 1 single flap. So I'm going to get my rough side of my Velcro hook and loop piece, and this is the other rough side, and it doesn't matter which one you put on which spot, you just want to make sure that they are facing up. And you're going to put the first one on the inside of the longer side flap piece, right close to the edge, and then sew right all the way around that hook and loop piece close to the edge. Now here is mine sewn on. You can see how close I stay to the outer edge. It's super easy to sew this on, and normally I would use a matching thread, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing. Now you're going to close the other flap, the shorter flap, because you're going to sew it, the other hook and loop piece, right on the top part of this. You want to make sure the placement is good when you close it, so just double check that and move it a little bit if you need to. And then you are going to top stitch all the way around that other hook and loop piece as well. Now let's get our top cushion piece. We're going to make a couple of folds to use as our placement guides for either the single strap or the double strap. You're going to fold it in half just like this. If you are making the single strap, now you're going to fold it in half long ways one more time to to make another crease. If you're making the double strap like I am, you're gonna fold it so that they're in about 3 equal pieces here, a tri-fold, and then make a crease on the sides so that you make a nice crease that you can see when you open this fabric back up. You can see the 2 long creases here and my 1 long crease here. The 2 long pieces are going to create a crossroad, and those are going to be used to place our straps onto. So what you're going to do is, you see the 2 creases that we made with our iron, you're going to kiss those 2 together so that you make a center fold right in between that. Press it with your finger, and then you're going to place that fold you're making, that crease you're making right here, right in the middle of the first cross section of your cushion fabric. So that middle crease right here should meet right in the middle of this crossroad cross section fold crease. Place it right on top of it and then open it up. You can pin or clip this in place if you need to, and go ahead and sew right down the middle and along the 2 other creases. This is where your seat belt will lay. If you're making the single strap, you're only going to have to sew this 1 time, and you're going to line it up with the center crossroad fold that you had made on your front cushion fabric. Here is how you place the second one, exactly like you did the first one. Here is my crossroad crease right there. I'm going to do the same exact thing to sew it into place. Now that our straps are secure on the front of our cushion fabric, get the back cushion fabric and lay it right on top with the right sides of the fabric together. The pretty sides of the fabric should be kissing. The next thing we're going to do is sew all the way around this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but not sewing across that straight bottom. You're going to leave this part open so that we can flip it right side out. Here's mine all sewn. You can see I used a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, and I did not sew across that straight bottom piece. The next thing you're going to do is, around the top curve of your fabric, you're going to cut some small slits right up to the stitches. If you have pinking shears, you can also cut around that curve with those. You do this anytime you sew curves so that when you flip it right side out, your fabric actually flips into a curve instead of a bunch of straight sides. So let's go ahead and go to the bottom and flip this right side out through that opening, and then you're going to smoothen out all the seams and all the edges with your finger. I also like to use a chopstick to go in there and make sure my seams are nice and open and rounded. If you have any wrinkles, now is a good time to go ahead and press it flat. I wouldn't do it right on top of your hook and loop. Just flip your fabric over and do it right on top of that, and press the front as needed. Go ahead and grab your polyfill or whatever stuffing you're using, measure with your heart, and just go ahead and push that stuffing through the whole opening that we have down there at the bottom. Don't overstuff it, so you don't want too much pressure on those incision sites or that port where chemotherapy is being given, or whatever it is that these are being used for. And go ahead and continue stuffing it, and make sure to leave a little bit of room at the bottom where the opening is so that we can sew this closed here in a minute. Now that we have it stuffed, we're going to go ahead and close the bottom again, just like you did earlier on your straps, by pressing it in about 1/4 of an inch. You can pin or clip this closed if you need to, and then you just want to sew about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch towards the bottom. You can also hand stitch it using an invisible ladder stitch if you don't want that to be seen. And now you're completely finished. You can attach it to your seat belt and make sure that the cushion side is on the body and the Velcro side is facing outward. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have fun sewing along with me. Please, please, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel to see all of our easy sewing patterns as they're released. Visit AlohaSewingCompany.com, or the link is down below in the description box on YouTube to see all of our super easy sewing patterns that you can print at home so you can start to sew faster. We make sewing patterns for literally everything, from baby items, kids' clothes, decorations, holiday stuff and gifts, bags and more. And before you go, mahalo.